It's Sandra Pike from Royal Page Atlantic and the Pike Group. And today I am interviewing Danielle McLean of DCL Law. And I just wanted to speak with her regarding the foreign buyer ban and just to make it really, really simple. Danielle, I know I just introduced you, but, just tell us about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been working as a lawyer, etc.
All right. Where am I from? I am from Sydney Mines. So, Nova Scotia born and raised. I have been practicing almost exclusively in real estate since 2004.
That
So I've been
long?
around for a while. Yeah, it's been that long. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah. And you look really young. Like I'm all jealous now.
Thank you.
So, so I know the foreign buyer ban is all across Canada, but let's just be specific about our market and how it will impact us here. So, if I am a foreign student and I'm coming from overseas, how am I impacted by this ban?
Well, in the simplest of terms, I mean, the buying ban is saying that a non-Canadian,
Mhm.
and that definition is a Canadian definition means a Canadian citizen, not a Canadian resident, or a permanent resident, or some people that fit in some other exemptions aren't allowed to purchase in Canada for the next 2 years. Now, there
Okay.
are some exceptions there depending on the area that they're buying.
Yeah.
But if you look
And
at an area like HRM, for example, they simply
mhm.
aren't going to be permitted to purchase.
But how about if I am from Europe and I'm thinking I want to purchase a property in either Lunenburg, Chester, or Mahone Bay because I want to have a summer home. Can I purchase a summer home if I am from Europe?
There are some exemptions under the
Mhm.
legislation, and one of them is if you're buying in a CMA or CA area. So the easiest answer to that is it depends, which is a very lawyer answer. There's tools online where you can go in and you can search Statistics Canada's website, and you can put in by postal code, and you can see if the area that you're looking to purchase is located within one of those areas that are exempt. So if you're purchasing in an area that's exempt, that's okay. But if you're trying to purchase in an area that is a CA or a CMA, which is typically a high density population area like HRM,
Yeah.
then you're not going to
Mhm.
be able to do that.
So if I'm allowed to purchase once I go in and I do the postal code, could it be a land, commercial, or residential? Does it matter? Like I can just purchase there regardless?
You can buy the rules aren't going to apply if you're buying in one of those areas. Now, there's some other considerations in there, like you're going to have provincial deed transfer tax, so an additional 5% as a non-Nova
Yeah.
Scotia resident that's purchasing. There's some other new fund taxes coming through with CRA with underused housing tax. That they should be looking at,
Mhm.
depending on if they're planning on doing a flip. There's some flipping tax rules in there, but they
Yeah.
won't be prohibited from purchasing as a starting point.
So I now just got recruited by Irving, and I am coming in from London. Can I buy a home?
Sounds like you're going to be renting if you're coming into HRM.
Wow. Do you really think, do you really think it's going to make a difference to our market here?
Not in Halifax, not in Nova
I don't think
Scotia
so.
as a whole. I think this is a, a sledgehammer for an ant. I'm sure it's an issue in Toronto or Vancouver when you've got, condo corps with vacant floors or people are just parking money. I haven't in my practice seen that as an issue in Nova Scotia. I don't think it's going to make the difference that we think. I think if anything, it might affect the condo or sorry, the cottage market in a negative way because that's
Mhm.
typically where I saw my non-residents purchasing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't, I look at that and, the only way it really is bothersome to realtors here, I think we have an extra form to fill out, but I don't
Mhm.
see, I mean, I think it's very sad that if I'm being recruited by Irving to move here and work, that I can't buy a house right away. That would be painful. But it's not going to do anything with our market here. And, I wonder if it's just the government putting a band-aid solution, just trying to make things look good, that they're doing something towards the market, but it's nothing that doesn't even affect our market here. It doesn't make sense.
It sounds fantastic to
Oh, it
someone
sounds
that
really
doesn't
good.
know the market.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that 98% of my clients are Canadian.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that other 2% aren't purchasing a house in HRM to leave it vacant. They're either purchasing it to use it part-time or they're purchasing it for a rental. So I really don't think it's going to have a whole lot of difference here in the province. It's, to your point, it's more paperwork for all of us. It's something that we all need to be very aware of, that are, our realtors and our lawyers and our mortgage specialists. But I don't think it's going to have the effect that
I agree
that
with
some
you.
people.
Uh, Danielle, if we can just go back to the foreign buyer ban, you are suggesting that if I am unsure as an agent what the exemptions are for a buyer, you're recommending that they go to an immigration lawyer and get the go ahead, correct?
Absolutely. There's some really specific exemptions in there that are looking at things like where somebody has lived the last 5 years, where they file taxes the last 4 of the 5 years, how many days a year they've been in Canada. You're not going to be able to verify that with any level of certainty. Neither is the residential real estate lawyer. I'm not going to be looking at somebody's tax returns.
No.
And what most of the real estate bar, I suspect, is going to be doing, and most of the lawyers I've been talking to, is when we're faced with those situations, we're going to be requiring that immigration lawyer opinion anyway. So I would say if somebody comes to you at the beginning and they say, oh, no, no, I'm in one of these exemptions, that you say, that's great, let's stop, let's get a legal opinion that you are, in fact, within one of those exemptions, and then we'll go and show your house. Like, you should be verifying that your client can purchase before you show the house, no different than you're making sure that they have the money to buy the house, or you're making
Yeah.
sure that they're pre-approved for a mortgage. There's a lot of risk in here for a realtor. If you get down this path and you've got an offer and that firms up and it turns out that your client was not, in fact, able to purchase that property, they're still going to get sued on the contract. They just can't legally complete the contract.
Absolutely. My thoughts are there's going to be upset buyers if an agent is, asking, well, I need the verification, but, that's the only way to one, not that I'm here to protect a seller if I'm a buyer agent, but I certainly want to protect my own interest. And, at the end of the day, like, you don't want to be writing an offer knowing, not knowing if a person can actually purchase if they're a Canadian or not, right?
Well, it's your reputation as well.
Yeah,
Uh, and of course, there's a $10,000 fine for all these involved
I
parties,
saw that.
including lawyer, realtor, mortgage specialist, anybody that's been involved in this. There's aiding and abetting provisions right in this legislation. So if we enable somebody that's a non-Canadian or not otherwise exempt to purchase, we're all on the hook for this. And I would suggest to you that if somebody doesn't want to provide what you require to show that they're a Canadian in order to purchase, there's probably a reason for that, and you're probably better off with them going on to another realtor or to another lawyer.
Yeah, I can, have you got anybody that you've seen already just trying to circumvent, the provisions in order to purchase here?
I would tell you that this is the piece of legislation that I've gotten the most questions on.
Yeah.
Even with all that mess with COVID, with people not being able to move here, all that, this is what I get the most questions on. I would say we've easily had 20, 30 questions on this of, but what if? What about this? What about that? I've yet to have one where the answer is yes, they can still go ahead. They've thought of all these loopholes. There's no loopholes, and you really shouldn't be trying to find them because the legislation is very punitive.
A question. So what if I wrote an offer in December and it firmed up in December, but I'm not closing till, I didn't close till, January, let's say the 15th. Can I still move ahead with that purchase even though it was in December that I wrote the
Yeah.
offer?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
were legally obligated to complete the transaction before December 31st, you're okay. So if you didn't have a firm transaction before December 31st, then they wouldn't be able to go ahead.
So what kind of questions are you getting asked? Because
Oh
to
my
me, it
goodness.
seems pretty black and white. Like if I don't understand it, go to your immigration lawyer.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a lot of questions over those temporary residency things, and a lot of it is more with people just asking me a situation, me quoting the legislation back, and then somebody saying, "But that's not fair," which is great, but I'm not the prime minister, so I can't change that. So it's been a lot of questions, kind of similar to your people moving here for work, but but my client is coming here, and they've been recruited, and they're a doctor, and they need to buy a house, or they've already been here for 2 years, and they were already looking to buy a house, but that's not fair. That's great. It's not fair, but the legislation does not allow for those sorts of exemptions. Uh, there seems to be a little bit of confusion over how some of the provisions are worded because a lawyer probably wrote it and we like to make things confusing, so you really need to delve into how some of it is worded. Some of it, if you don't know the context, it almost sounds like you can do some things that you can't do. So one of the exemptions in there, it says something along the lines, to paraphrase, that you can still rent. That doesn't mean that you can purchase property as a non-Canadian to rent it. It means you can rent to a non-Canadian.
Yes.
So there's some confusion there. A non-Canadian is permitted to purchase with a Canadian citizen if they are legally married or common law. Common law under this legislation is conjugal relationship, living together for 12 months. So I've had the question posed to me, well, the non-Canadian is going to be the only person on title because the Canadian doesn't have good credit. Can't do it. It says with, they're not purchasing with. I've had somebody ask about gifts, if somebody could simply gift something to a non-Canadian, the way the legislation is worded. No,
That has to
you
be
can't do that.
divorce or in death, correct?
Well, the divorce, is kind of open to interpretation. I read that if you and I were on title and I was a non-Canadian and you were Canadian and we divorced and you had to convey it to me as part of that divorce, that's okay. I don't
Yeah.
think it means that if I get removed from title as a non-Canadian, I'm allowed to buy something else. So I
No, I
don't
didn't
think
think
that's
that.
going to I don't think that will help for a realtor. I don't think these are kind of situations where someone can go and outright purchase something. I think it's more to deal with the exchange of title between separating spouses. You can inherit as well. So
Yep.
if
Yes, that's
a
right.
non-Canadian inherited, that's fine. But again, I don't think that's gonna help from a purchase and sale point of view. That's more just just transferring title. So I
Yeah.
think there's
Again,
going to be a lot more questions that come up as we go. Of course, there's no real interpretation on any of it anymore. No one's really clear exactly how it's going to be enforced. I don't know if you've looked at the legislation with kind of the consequences. So, in addition to the fines for the people that are involved, the actual buyer, if the transaction is completed, that property can be seized and sold with the profit retained. So, your buyer wouldn't even get the profit, and they would have a fine. So, there's some interesting things on the back end there because I think otherwise somebody might be so inclined to just purchase and pay the $10,000 fine. But they could in fact lose the property and lose any profit on it.
so I mean, the government is leaving it on the onus of us, essentially. You need to do your due diligence, and it's a risk that I'm willing to take. That what, hey, if you're my buyer and you feel that you qualify, I just need that. I need the security from the immigration lawyer that this is actually legit, because that's the only way, one, that I can take the burden of proof that I didn't that I did have them do their due diligence, right?
Exactly. And sometimes it's going to be cut and dry. Sometimes it might say, well, I live in Florida, but here's my Canadian passport and my Canadian birth certificate. Great. But if you get someone that says, no, I've lived here the last 4 of the 5 years, and I've been here for the last 244 days of every one of those years, and I've done that. I mean, none of us are going to be able to go down that rabbit hole. We're not qualified to do that. And
Yeah.
that's where you really need to pull in those immigration lawyers who are going to be able to vet this and give us all security that they're able to purchase. And your buyer should want that security as well, because look what can happen to them if in fact they were wrong.
So how long would that process take, do you think?
I don't know. I would. think, and I have spoken to an immigration lawyer that I've sent work to before, I think a lot of it would depend on your buyer and what information they had available, and if that immigration lawyer was chasing things. But I would think it could probably be something that could be done fairly quickly, assuming your client had all the information together that they needed to provide.
I'm going to poke the bear now. Listing agent, and I get a foreign name in. Can I ask the buyer to prove that they are Canadian citizens if I suspect that they're not? But I mean, I'm just judging, right? Or assuming. As a listing agent, can I ask for that information from the buyer and their agent?
You can ask for whatever you want. I don't think, I don't think the other agent should be sharing things like identification, but I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for them to provide some sort of assurance that they vetted that, because if you're aware that there's an issue, you're aiding and abetting as well. So you could be on the hook for those provisions. And that could be something that you could put in a counteroffer and come back and say, they're to provide proof, or that the NSAR form that's there provided, and have their client consent and send it through. But that's certainly something, if I were a realtor, that I would be asking, even if I were the listing agent, because I wouldn't want to be going down that path. And again, you don't want your client to go all the way down that path and then to turn out that the buyer wasn't able to complete the transaction.
Should that be on our purchase and sales agreement, that the buyer is acknowledging that they are a Canadian citizen or whatever, just to take the ambiguity out for the selling side? Because
I've seen,
that's going to cause trouble.
Yeah, I've seen a few clauses floating around already where people have added it in as an additional clause. I don't know, if you want to go down the road of a form change, because this is only a 2-year ban. But that's certainly something that could be looked at. I would say if you get an offer that says Joe and Sally Smith of Texas, I would certainly be countering back and saying, that they're required to give some sort of assurance or some sort of proof that they are Canadian, or that it's subject to them verifying and their lawyer verifying with the other lawyer that they're Canadian or otherwise permitted to buy, if you're seeing a red flag like that. And that's what I would look for typically is, so-and-so of, and see what the address is there. That doesn't mean that they're a citizen, but that would be an immediate flag for me. And then, of course, we ask our clients to verify, assuming the clients are going to get that done
right.
within the time frame.
But if I look at some of the purchase and sale agreements that I get, doesn't have like, 123 Street. It just has Halifax, or it has Ontario, or it has whatever.
Yeah.
I still have no idea.
You have no idea. You could put anything in there. I don't think there's any reason. I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't be asking for that, or even making it a clause that's in all of, a clause that's in all of your offers. That said, again, like there's still some due diligence in there. It's one thing for them to sign off saying they're Canadian, but you still need to make sure that they actually are. And it's like anything, just because you have a form doesn't mean that you did everything. You've got the form, but you still need to make sure that a reasonable person would have still come to that assumption. But I don't think it would hurt to have something like that in your agreement, that it's subject. Of course you do. Yeah. And you're protecting your client too. You don't want your client to go through all the heartbreak of an offer filing because the buyer's agent didn't do their due diligence at the beginning and ensure that was the case. And you're assuming that everybody's aware of the ban.
And I don't want a buyer agent who is not doing their due diligence be mine and my seller's demise. Like I don't want to take that risk on.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't think about those things, because that not every realtor practices real estate the same way. It's a deemed that we do, but I think doing that extra bit of homework, and doesn't necessarily have to be a foreign name. It could be, Jane Smith, and Jane is from.
I had one the other day with a very Canadian sounding name, and they are not Canadian. So, think of it as no different than, if you've got multiple offers in front of you and somebody's pre-approved and somebody's not, you're going to go with who's pre-approved, right?
So just an extra
So
step, but it is, I don't feel that it's going to affect our market from a housing standpoint. I don't even think it's going to dent, but I think the implication for a seller not knowing who that purchaser is, and for me as the listing agent not doing that extra step to protect them, I think that's on me, and I need to protect my seller, for what could potentially come down the pipe.
yeah, I think, the next couple of weeks, everybody's going to be trying to figure this out. There's going to be a lot of push back and forth, and then hopefully everybody settles into a
Yeah.
practice that protects everybody, which is we all verify this, so we have no problem confirming. Yeah, sure. My client's Canadian. I've already got the form sitting in my file.
Yeah.
Easy, right? And again, if everybody asks for the same things, it's not going to be a problem because it's going to be there. So if everybody follows the same due diligence, and everybody makes sure before you enter into these contracts with people that you've made sure that they're able to buy, no different than making sure they have the money to buy, you have to make sure that they legally can buy, then you'll be okay because everybody's asking for the same thing. So it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be, of course, Sandra, of course I made sure that they can buy it before I made an offer. Absolutely, I could confirm that I have that.
Yeah. No, I like it. Okay. I will certainly let you go this time. I didn't mean to take up so much of your time today, but again, I think the seller, I think they're so important in this transaction that I am protecting them, or we as an industry are certainly protecting them.
Good luck.
Awesome. Thank you.